like $1 billion to even try to spend that would take, I mean, it's at the point where you have individual companies that are trying to help bored billionaires figure out what to do with their time and coming up with things like, let's make a restaurant in the middle of the ocean out of 3D printing, and the restaurant will only last a day and we'll charge an exorbitant amount of money and then it'll disappear. Like, what is happening? Trail-Based Therapy Day, you've been tracking this bill that I know everybody hears about it as the big, beautiful bill.
Don't say that. I hate it when people repeat the messaging on it.
Well, it's I want to say that in an ironic internet way of, oh yeah, so beautiful. I mean, it's definitely big, that we can give it. But yes, it's beautiful that we are doing the biggest cut in federal programs ever, that we are making the biggest debt limit increase ever, and that we are making ICE the biggest law enforcement agency in the country. I mean, ICE already has jurisdiction like 100 miles from the border. That's like 80% of the population right there, right? I mean, it is a big bonkers bill.
Absolutely. It's bonkers. It's gonna, like, it's ugly. I think that's the Democratic talking point, the big ugly bill. But look, here's the reality is it's definitely not going to do anything for anybody who makes less than $300,000 a year. It's only going to take things away from people who make less than $400,000 a year, and it will give things away to people who make more. That is the fundamental reason why Trump thinks it's beautiful.
Yeah, the entire driving force behind this bill is that Trump just needs to get an economic thing done. And he wants to take the tax cuts that he had in his first term and make them longer term, if not permanent. That's it. That's the driving force behind this bill. And when you decide that you're not going to actually get money into the government, money that frankly is owed by many of the billionaires and oligarchs who use all sorts of public resources to make their money, but get the biggest tax breaks ever compared to the rest of us. When you don't bring that money in, then things either get cut or you end up running into debt and a deficit. And it's really shocking to see how quickly the Republican Party, that party that used to be about fiscal responsibility, has just fallen in line with, let's get Trump what he wants. Let's just make this happen. And that's, we have people now in the Senate saying they're not going to run for re-election because they've decided that they're going to do Trump's bidding. And they just don't want to have to face the public again after saying yes to Donald Trump.
Yeah, they don't really care about what's happening with the debt, but we've always known this about Republicans. It's really about which jobs program, which redistribution are you up for, right? Like Democrats are like, well, let's get more money into the base of the pyramid, of the economic pyramid. Let's get more money into the middle class so that people can have money, to buy a house and send their kids to school and maybe take a vacation from time to time. The Republicans say, let's give more money to the business people. And then maybe it'll trickle down, maybe it won't. We don't know. So we'll do that through defense spending. We'll spend a bunch of money with defense contractors. And then we'll do that through tax cuts. And we'll give everybody who makes over a certain amount of money. And if you have a business, or at least a pass-through business, a LLC or an S Corp, then you'll be able to take advantage of these things. But if you make an hourly wage, if you get up in the morning, put on your clothes, go to a job, clock in, stay there for 8 or 9 hours, leave, make the median income in the United States, which is about $72,000 a year for the general public. In African-American terms, it's like $56,000 a year. I think Latinos are about the same. If you make $50 or $60 or $70,000 a year, you're going to get nothing. You're going to get nothing. And so that is the trick of the Trump economics, is give all the money to the rich people. Let's hope that they, create some new jobs for people who make $70,000 a year, and everybody else, you're on your own. You're just on your own.
Well, the whole idea is that the folks at the top of the pyramid right now benefit from everybody else's labor. They're not looking to get us to do less labor. They want us working more, longer hours for less pay, and with fewer benefits and security. And they're already there. Let's be real, right? The idea of, hustle culture and the gig economy. I mean, I don't know anybody who's got a job that they could stay at for 20 years and have a pension, right? The idea of corporate loyalty, there's nothing being given back to workers at this point. You're lucky if you can get health insurance or any other kind of benefits from your employer these days. So that promise that used to be there about working hard and being loyal to the company, that doesn't exist at all. And it's a massive generational shift. We are millennials and younger. We're the first generation that is not going to out earn or economically advance from our parents, first generation ever. And it's not for lack of work. Let's be clear. We are working longer hours. It's just the system is not giving us what our parents used to get. And then you add on student loans. I mean, all of these are various designs that put into place extra burdens on working people, while, again, the wealthy are getting credit for already having money and continue to get credit for having money. And they would like us to be supporting their lifestyle.
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with anybody being wealthy. I don't have a problem with anybody making money. The problem I have is I want more people to make more money, right? Like, that's my problem. Like, we need more capital at the bottom and at the center part of the pyramid, right? We need more people able to support themselves. We need people to be able to send their kids to childcare, and so they can keep working if they need to work an extra shift and not be worried about where their kids are going to be, or that they're going to start a business and keep like funding their side hustle so they could do that in the evening while their kids are being taken care of and not have to pay an exorbitant amount of money. We need people to be able to go to school and not have to spend 40 years paying off student loans that they're not going to be able to afford to get a job that's not going to actually make as much money as it did before. We need to figure out what we're going to do when AI comes and starts disrupting so many of these industries and people start losing their jobs. And so does that mean that we're going to have like a higher minimum wage or more guaranteed income so that people have more money at the base of the pyramid so they can take care of their families? For me, that is the challenge. The challenge is, how do we make sure people are able to live robust lives in an economy where there is so much wealth, right? There's so much that we have and the innovation that needs to occur. So you need to have some level of competition, because competition does spur innovation. And it's the innovation that is powering the entire economy. We got to be able to do that, but we got to be able to let people feed themselves, clothe themselves, take care of their kids, take a vacation, do the things that they want to do in their lives. So they're not just serfs sitting at home watching television and sitting on SNAP benefits, which of course the Republicans also want to cut, which is bananas.
Yeah, and that goes to the idea that of how we demonize people who are the working poor. And let's be clear that these federal programs exist to make sure that that bottom rung of society is able to live a decent life. And again, if you want to think about it really strict economic terms, not drag everybody else down. And part of that is they are in jobs, if not multiple jobs, that classify them as the working poor. If you are getting Medicaid benefits right now, you are making $40,000 or less for a family of four. Right? That is a job. Like, you are working, you are doing what you can. And that's why you're getting tax dollars back to help you out. And the fact that that is the piece of the puzzle that Republicans and the senators have decided to cut, where you have Mitch McConnell saying, they'll get over it. You have Joni Ernst saying, everyone dies. Like, it's just a very nihilistic, almost like a death cult approach. We're like, all right, I guess some people aren't going to make it in life, and some people are just going to die off. Well, that's a lot of some people. Right? That's
yeah.
Like, I'm not okay with. I'm not okay with the just writing off an entire section of society because they weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth.
And here's the thing. We had an experiment about this, right? During the pandemic, we actually ran this experiment. We had healthcare that was basically provided to everyone, right? If you had COVID and you went to the doctor, nobody charged you anything. You got your vaccines for free. We did all that. We had payments for people who were like losing their jobs and companies that needed to keep people employed. So we saw that happened, and that kept the economy going. We saw that childcare, Biden passed a childcare tax benefit. So we saw people put their kids in childcare, cut child poverty by 35%. Right? Cut child poverty, biggest child poverty program we've ever seen. Even what people think of as your STEMI check, like, didn't really come from Trump, but whatever happened with Trump and Nancy Pelosi, that little STEMI check, everybody got a little money. The economy did well. And you know what happened? After the pandemic was over, it kept the economy going because people had more wealth. They were able to take care of their families. What we know is that if you put more money at the top of the pyramid, rich people start investing in things that are speculative. Right. Yep. And that speculative investment leads to boom and bust. The economy pops and the stock market crashes, and we go through all this stuff. We've been doing this since the age of tulips. We know that this is an economic problem, but yet we still think if we give more rich people more money, it's going to be better. No, You give money to people who are working class. They will buy things with that money. And you know what will happen? Rich people will still make money because they will own the companies people buy things from. It will all work. It's a virtuous cycle.
That's the thing, right? Is it gets to the point where it's like, how much more money do you need? Like $1 billion to even try to spend that would take, I mean, it's at the point where you have individual companies that are trying to help bored billionaires figure out what to do with their time and coming up with things like, let's make a restaurant in the middle of the ocean out of 3D printing, and the restaurant will only last a day and we'll charge an exorbitant amount of money and then it'll disappear. Like, what is happening? Because these people don't need to work to make money or to live life. And so there is such a thing as there's such, socially, you have too much money, like, and you're never going to see it. There are people who at least give them their tax dollars back, right? Look, that's the thing. This is a structure that is not giving tax breaks to people who are working. That's very, I mean, that should not have been such a complicated thing to do. And the idea that these big programs that kept America as a country, out of poverty, gutting those programs is really rewinding the clock. Yes, again, make America great again, to before FDR, to around, the Great Depression era, and how all economics and business used to work then. They're very clear about this, right? Like there's no apology. There's no dancing around the fact that these programs are going to be cut, and they're okay with it. And it's to the point where they're openly acknowledging that it's okay if a bunch of people die. It's okay if a bunch of people are struggling and life is not going to get better for them. And that's wow. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
That doesn't drive a populist movement to change the system. I don't know what will.
Governor Westmore in Maryland has been pursuing this national service idea, Maryland service. But I've been a big proponent of national service for a couple of reasons. One, I think if you, just in terms of economics, if you got people between the ages of 18 and 24, and they had to spend a year, maybe 2 years serving the country, it would do a couple of things. It gives people the chance to do something that's worthwhile and good for the country, right? Maybe you can build roads, you can take care of kids, you can go to the military if that's your cup of tea, you can go to foreign service if we have such a thing, since they got rid of USAID and all these places. But you could go do something that serves the country and makes the country a better place. Number two, it also will provide something that gives us a common experience, right? The fact that you have the wealthiest people in the country and the poorest people in the country, and they may never meet and get to know each other. One of the things I remember meeting people who were older, and you meet these older guys, and they all served in the Army or the Navy or something in the 1950s or 60s. And they had this experience about, the food was bad. Remember, you went to Fort wherever. Yeah, that food was bad. Remember that one guy in the trucks and the blah, blah. But they had this experience that they all have in common about being in a shitty situation together, regardless of how much money they had or wherever they came from, but it was a common experience. There's nothing in America today that's really a common experience for us. There's nothing that we have, unless you're counting like watching reality television, but other than that, or like a sports game, there's nothing in that we have. And so, one, I want to do that. And economically, I think if you took the money that it would cost away from like a little tax cut, a little tax on people who are wealthy, or don't cut their taxes, and you put that into everyone else being able to build the country for a year or two, and after you build the country for 2 years, you get that 2 years back in education, right? That's 2 years of free tuition. For every year you spend doing national service is a year of tuition that you get in return. I think that builds the country, makes it a better place, makes it more affordable, and makes the country work. I don't know why people are so against this idea.
I mean, you could also just not charge exorbitant amounts of money for people to attend school to begin with. I mean, so many local community colleges and states are now going tuition free, and it's great, right? That is what the system was like in the 1980s. Like, this does not need to be a profit-making venture where legacy families get to have their name on a door in exchange, or building in exchange for everybody else being in debt for 30 years, right? Like, there is a legitimate complaint about what's happening in higher education and how expensive it's gotten, and how that really does make it difficult for the rest of society to get access to education. So we've done different things before. Like, this is the irony, is that we are actively, as a society, as a governance structure, moving to the things that prove to not work. And they already showed, child labor is not a great idea.
No.
There are states that are lowering child labor laws to 14. Why? Why is this the answer to any of the challenges that we face in society, is to go back to the good old days when people were existing in their serf status versus lord status, and nobody had access to anything. And there's, discrimination was written into the law. Like, oh, it is actually that blatant. So I see these movements happening at the local and state level, and I am excited to see what comes out of this, the next election cycle. And, do the Republicans get thrown out of Congress? Do we have a younger generation? And by young, I mean like people in their actual 40s, they're actually technically middle age at this point. But do we see middle-aged people serving in offices around the country and trying to take some of this power back from the oligarchs? The challenge is we actually have to get to that next election. And with the policies that we see in place, and with the law enforcement expansion of ICE, there's just so much that's happening in this moment that I do worry about us even getting to that next election.
It's something to be worried about. The more you see what's happening with the law enforcement expansion, the U.S. Supreme Court taking power away from other institutions that are trying to be checks on the president. Today, I was just, the story today, right now, about what's happening in terms of people who have been nationalized American citizens. And the U.S. government, the Trump administration now wants to be able to take away your naturalized citizenship for more laws. If people have broken laws, they could be denaturalized, right? Talk about an un-American policy. This is literally an un-American policy. We're going to un-American you if we decide that you've done something that we don't like. And we're not talking about people who have taken up arms against the country and maybe fought a civil war. No, we're going to name army bases for them, Fort Lee, right? Like we're gonna honor people who are actual traitors, and we're gonna take American citizenship away from people because they may have committed some, offense, crime.
Actually, and no, this is the challenge. They're going to be accused of doing something,
right?
And the citizenship will be taken away just in the accusation, and now there's no injunction that can stop that. So based on an accusation, the government can do what it wants to you and your status and your freedom, put you in jail, all of those things. And then until the court case as an individual resolves, the government can get away with whatever it wants to.
And here's the trick about how they've got this thing structured now is they've now figured out, the Trump administration isn't even contesting some of these cases, because what they figured out is if you win a case in a district court somewhere, that case may apply to you only, or may only apply in the district where it occurred, but not not the whole country. So what they don't want to actually appeal it, because they don't want the ruling at a higher level to apply to everyone else. So they're just going to allow these little like subgenres, these little ordinances around the country. So depending on where you get arrested or where you live, like dealing with whether or not people are actually American citizens, right? If you're born in the United States, if you get to be an American citizen. This may be true in Illinois or in New York or in Maryland, but it may not be true in Louisiana or in Alabama or some other place. And so now we're going to have all these different patchwork laws depending on where you are. Just like, can you have an abortion? Well, sure you can if you live in Illinois, but you can't if you live in Texas, right? Like, at some point we have to, this is the United States of America, not a bunch of United States as it used to be, a bunch of states that are now united. It is now a single country, the United States. So
the idea that you all have equal rights under the law, they're like, well, which law? And they're saying, essentially saying is that it's not going to be the Constitution unless something rises up from different districts at the same time, that then it has to go to the Supreme Court. It's all up to the states, and that they're, and that is very scary, because it means if you go into another state or just travel as an American, I want to go to one of the national parks, they could question my citizenship, they could question my marriage, all sorts
marriage status, correct?
Right, and there's lots of precedent for saying there are certain things that are reciprocal between the states. We're in the era now where that's not the case anymore, and so what does it mean to be part of America versus just a member of your state? That's the big question mark. And that's what the Supreme Court, and they're trying to change the fundamental nature of that.
And what we've seen post Dobbs is the effort of some states to be able to try to have extra judicial power over other states, right? So if you are let's say you're Texas and you say you can't have an abortion in Texas, if a Texas citizen goes to New York to get an abortion, Texas wants to be able to then go after the doctor that performed that abortion in New York, because they performed it on a citizen of Texas. Like, those are the kinds of things that get even more scary, because it means not only are you subject to the jurisdiction of whatever state it is when you land in it, you may still be subject to that jurisdiction because they want to go after you because you've done something. They decide, oh, well, we think we can still go after you in Maryland or New York for doing something we think is illegal in the state that we govern. It's pretty scary stuff.
And there's still a couple more cases for the Supreme Court to decide, so we'll see some other interesting rulings coming out. But all it's done is given the executive branch, and this time it's the Trump administration, free reign to do what they want. And we don't see any checks coming out from Congress. We don't see a check coming from the Supreme Court. So this is what we've got. And we've just had to figure out, I guess, on a day-to-day or a local level, what you do to push back and maintain your sanity. And that's where we're stuck. That's where we're at right now. It's not good.
You know, there's a poll out right now. I'm just trying to pull it up right now. There's a poll out from NPR and Marist, right, which is about people not being. I can't see this. Which is about people, whether or not people feel proud to be an American. And I just thought it really got my attention today. Those. The overwhelming majority of respondents, 76%, said democracy is under serious threat. That's statistically unchanged from April, but down significantly from August of 2023. So people believe that America is under threat. Republicans are largely responsible for the decline, going from 88% saying there's a serious threat to 57%. So what happens is whoever's in power, which we know that the person who's in power, the people believe that it's okay. But here's the question. Nearly 3/4 also see politically motivated violence as a major problem. Mm-hmm. So people are feeling less likely to be proud of being an American, feel more under threat because of political violence, and they're worried about the future of the country in a way that, I think they ought to be worried about the future of the country.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? And so the question is, where do people redirect their energy, and what do you do about it? And we'd love for the answer to be get civically engaged and involved, but you get to the point where if it's okay, just watch out for me and mine, knowing that as part of a functioning democracy, it's a set of rules that you watch out for other people also. And that was the promise of the MAGA movement, is that it was going to watch out for you and yours and allow you to screw over other people in the process. And that's the fundamental tension to me, are we going to be trying to knit together as a society where we try to take care of each other, and we try to take care of each other across state lines? I'm not convinced that that's going to be the case in 2026.
Yeah, the thing I have been wrestling with, you're absolutely nailing something. And the thing I've been wrestling with is, how do we do this? It's so easy to get dispirited, right? It's so easy to decide, you know what, I'm just going to take care of my household. I'm not going to worry about this other stuff. I'm not going to get myself in trouble. I'm not going to worry about, these things are all too big. But here's the thing. We have to continue to work, because even though we may not know the value of our work, or the outcome of our work, doing the work at a bunch of different places at the same time is what actually lends to creating the change that is we want. And you never know what thing is going to spark the ultimate change. And so if everybody retreats to their own little world, then there's no effort to try to, I guess the tikkun, I guess is the Jewish word of it, to try to repair the world. Like, we have to try to repair the world. And if we're not trying to repair the world, then the bad guys are just going to keep ripping it apart.
That's it. It's right. It's a daily practice. And I would say that no thing is too small, right? Even if it is just raising your kids to have a sense of moral responsibility for society around them. Like, I'm very much in that space right now. And I think that's an important effort. That's not a waste of time or energy. And yeah, no action is too small when it comes to trying to figure out how we move forward together. Jamal, thank you for the chat today. It's always helpful to talk to you on Trailblaze Tuesdays.